Hello, everybody. My name is Nancy Rosenbaum. I am the president of the Goddard Photo Club, and I am so delighted to be able to introduce Mr. Jon Carmichael. Jon's talk has created enough interest that we are also webcasting at GIS, IVNV, and Wallop, so welcome to all of you as well. Mr. Carmichael is a New York-based photographer who has a passion for photography, astronomy, and aviation. Mr. Carmichael spent years plotting how he could capture a total solar eclipse in a unique way. His great opportunity arose in 2017 during the Great American Eclipse. Mr. Carmichael captured the event from a commercial Southwest Airlines flight inside totality at 39,000 feet above the Snake River. USA Today and Inc. magazine claimed that this could be the best photo of an eclipse ever made. So Mr. Carmichael was very excited to come to Goddard to talk to us about experiencing an eclipse from the sky. He will also be sharing some of his other astrophotography work and some adventures from around the globe. We will leave some time for question and answers, and there are 2 microphones, 1 at each side. So we would ask, especially because we're being recorded, we would ask that you not call out your questions, but go to the microphone and wait to be called on. So, Jon, you get all of our GSFC community, and won't you all please help me welcome Mr. Jon Carmichael.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I have been a huge fan of NASA my entire life. The inner child in me is freaking out right now. Never thought I would be speaking at NASA, and thank you to the Goddard Photo Club for having me, and to Allison and Tim O'Brien for connecting us, and a huge thank you to Dorlisa Hummel, who we met over a year ago, and she was so excited and passionate about this and worked so hard and has been so kind, and this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for her. So just a round of applause, please, for, you're a wonderful human, thank you. Before we get into the eclipse part of everything, I thought I would share a little bit about my background and how the events that led up to the reasons why I set out to photograph the Great American Eclipse of 2017. So, as I said, I've been a huge space nerd my whole life. My whole childhood, all through my adolescence, my main hobby was building and launching model rockets. I built dozens and dozens of them. The one I was most proud of was 6 feet tall and flew over 1,200 feet up in the air. It's hard to believe my parents let me do this, but and you can tell this is in the mid-90s because of my Vanilla Ice highlights. My all-time favorite rocket was called the Astrocam, because it actually took photos while it was up in the air on its way down. And this is way before drones or even digital photography. And I didn't realize at the time that there was a seed planted within me. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old that I picked up my first camera. I had no idea I had a passion for photography. I just accidentally fell in love with it. And a lot of things changed very quickly. And it's been my career now for about 12 years, even though I mostly shoot for corporate and political events and things like that, which has been wonderful, but my main passion has always been astronomy photography, also known as astrophotography. It's so cool, I don't have to explain much to you guys. So NASA has really influenced my life in a lot of ways, and about 2 years after I started doing photography is when I realized I can actually blend and merge my passion for astronomy with photography. And so my whole lifestyle changed essentially mostly because I realized how expensive equipment's going to be to photograph the stars. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into, and it also can be a very tedious, frustrating task if anybody has done astrophotography. It requires a lot of patience. The most difficult part of astrophotography is, we're on this rotating Earth, so the stars in the night sky are moving, we're moving, but so you have to counteract the Earth rotation using what's called an equatorial mount, and in order to get these long exposures of the stars. But that's something I love so much about photography is you can push the boundaries of the technology to be able to see reality in a way that we can't see with our naked eye. So for about a decade, I never printed a single image before. I never showed anybody any of this work. I never viewed it as artwork. For me, it was just, I always viewed my camera as just simply a tool to be able to see things I wanted to see, and to explore the universe. And it was a very just selfish thing, just based on my own curiosity. But it's very, you only get a small window of opportunity to photograph the Milky Way, especially the center of the Milky Way, because you need to be away from all light pollution, essentially. There can only be a new moon, which is only a few days a month, and it needs to be during the summertime, because at least if you're in the northern hemisphere, right? So there's all these factors, and that's assuming that the weather works out. So you have maybe a maximum of 16-day opportunity to photograph certain parts of the Milky Way. So every opportunity is very crucial. And so some of these images, because of that, some of these images I've worked on for one of them took me 3 years, I think, 3 summers. So I'd like to share with you some of those pieces if you'd like to see them. I'm a little new to showing photos to people, let alone like here. I mean, you've got Hubble Space Telescope, and then I'm way down here. So I would like to share something a little bit personal. I just would regret it if I didn't. This is all because of my dad, essentially. My dad was very, very creative. He was an artist also. He was a painter and a poet. For his profession, he was a board game designer. He designed like hundreds of board games. And he wrote 6 novels. I mean, he was just very creative. He died in 2013. And I was so sad, and obviously sad. He and I were very close, but I was so upset with myself because my dad never got to see my artwork. I never got to share that with him. And this was almost 10 years after I was photographing, and I just thought, why have I never printed a single photograph in 10 years? And so I just stopped working for an entire year, and I just dedicated, I think, about 9 months to learn the whole printing process, which is a whole nother art form I knew nothing about. Anyway, I won't get lost in all the details, but I will be certainly thinking of him right now. Since then, that was a few years ago, I have learned, because now I'm enjoying educating people on the Milky Way and whatnot. I'm not a scientist by any means. Well, I don't even have a degree, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I've learned that I'm sure I don't have to explain much about the Milky Way to all of you, which is wonderful. But I've learned that the general public essentially, they hear about the Milky Way. You know, you hear about people that go on a camping trip or something, and wow, you could see the Milky Way. But a lot of people don't know what that is. I mean, we've seen illustrations of the Milky Way like this. You know, we've got the spiral arms and the supermassive black hole in the center, and it's 100,000 light years across. 1 light year is 6 trillion miles. And, you know, nobody can really conceive the magnitude of it. And our sun, you know, is just right there on one of the outer arms. And I just realized a lot of these graphics, like one of you who made this could be in the room. That's so cool. If you did, thank you. I love this. I use it all the time. And so, you know, our sun orbits around that center point. And it's just, you can't really comprehend it. And, you know, a lot of people have seen this before, but I've learned that a lot of people don't realize you can see this from Earth, but we're inside of the galaxy. So you have to shift your perspective a little bit, right? So pretend I'm holding this giant galaxy in my hand. It's like a CD-ROM disk. And, you know, there's the black hole in the middle and everything. So if you were to turn this disk 90 degrees, so you're looking through the thin side, the thin edge of that disk, this is what the galaxy looks like from the inside, right? So, but it's, does this microphone work? Oh, I haven't turned it on. But yeah, what I love so much about this is, you know, this is the center of the galaxy here, and our sun, our entire solar system, is orbiting around these spiral arms there. And I've shared this with a lot of kids. Kids just love it. A lot of adults get freaked out by it, because the ego starts kicking in, and we don't like feeling small, right? But I think it's really important that we do remind ourselves how small we are, but we might be very rare. I just think it really instills that curiosity. And so a lot of people I've shown some of these images to and shared this, and then people have reached out to me, I went camping, oh my God, I could see it. I could see, wow, that's what I'm seeing. And I just love instilling that curiosity and that humility. That's why I'm so honored to be here and excited, because that's the underlying reason that NASA does what they do. That's the underlying reason why we explore, why we are doing any of this. So anyway, I'll show you some more details here of these images. I do a lot of photographic mosaics. I love to blow up images so I could zoom in and explore and just really appreciate the detail of the Milky Way. And the only way you can really do that, though, is using a telephoto lens. And this took me 2 summers to kind of piece together like a giant puzzle. So, and then this is called Stardust. This is the center of our galaxy. I took this in Death Valley for many, many nights, and my very last, I needed one more section of the Milky Way, and it was the last opportunity for the 3rd summer I was working on this, and there were like herds of coyotes. I swear they were like conspiring to attack me, and I was like in the middle of nowhere, and I'm calling my friend, are you sure coyotes don't attack humans? But I was like, I finally got all my equipment set up and balanced and calibrated, and it took me hours, and the sun's about to come up. I have to get this shot, and it took about 20, 30 minutes to make each exposure, so I pushed the shutter button. I just ran into my car and hid for the rest of the night. But it came out, and so I spent the winter time working on that. This is my favorite island in Kauai, Hawaii. This is actually smoke from a wildfire that caused these incredible colors. I was actually standing on the Las Vegas Strip when I took this. And this is a partial eclipse, where the moon is partially covering the sun. A lot of people think this is a nighttime photo, and that's just simply the moon, which technically it is the moon, but also the sun. So I've photographed a lot of partial eclipses before, a lot of lunar eclipses, but a total solar eclipse, that was something that was like the mecca. That was something that was on my mind since 7th grade geography class, when my teacher, Mrs. Thompson, turned out all of the lights in the classroom. She got out a globe, and she turned on a flashlight saying, this is our sun, and this baseball here is the moon, and started orbiting the moon, or the baseball, around the Earth, illustrating for us what the moon's phases are. And she said, every once in a while, though, the moon will perfectly align in between the sun and the Earth, creating what's called a total solar eclipse. And if you're lucky enough and in the right place at the right time, you can actually be underneath the moon's shadow, and you would see the entire sky in the middle of the day suddenly turn completely dark like it's midnight. I was like, what? That exists? And she was showing us photos and everything, and I ran home and I said, Mom and Dad, have you seen a total solar eclipse before? And they're like, no. And I'm like, you haven't been to totality? And they're like, what's totality? I'm like, you don't even know what this is? How could you live your whole life not seeing one of these? And so since that day, I was determined to witness an eclipse. And then so much, much later, now I'm a photographer. So with all of these passions merged together, I kept trying to figure out, where do I go for this great American eclipse, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? But I'm also a pilot. I think this has to do with those rocket launches. I've always been obsessed with seeing the Earth from high up above. I stare out of airplane windows every flight I go on. I don't understand people who get an aisle seat. I just think it's the coolest thing, like humans flying, that's only existed for about 100 years. So when I was 23 years old, I worked hard and saved a lot of money, and this is my airplane, my humble airplane here. Most people called it my flying lawn chair. I prefer flying motorcycle, but it's technically a weight shift control light sport aircraft. You need a sports pilot's license to fly this. And so this was my passion, and I hooked up cameras on the wings and everything, and that's how this photo was taken from a GoPro camera. And that was, so with all these passions merged together, for the eclipse, I kept wondering, if I got up high enough, could I actually witness the moon's shadow moving across the Earth's surface at almost 2,000 miles per hour? Like that, selfishly, I wanted to see that. I wanted to experience that. And as a photographer, I wondered, could I actually capture this so that other people can share that experience? And it happened. So I'll finally get into the eclipse story. Thank you for bearing with my random story. So I don't have a clock here, by the way. Are we okay on time? Okay, great. So I was very determined when I had this idea. And I knew I have to be up in the air for this. And I looked up some private jet companies, and I was like, I can't afford that, even though I did consider it. And so there was Alaska Airlines announced in the springtime of 2017 that they were doing a big contest. They were flying one of their aircraft that was fully reserved for astrophysicists and astronauts. And they announced that. My mom called me and told me about the contest, and I was like, holy cow, this is it. This is my one shot. And they were keeping one seat open for a lucky winner. You have to submit a 30-second video submission on why you should be the person on this airplane. I'm like, this is it. So I dedicated so much time. I spent at least 50 plus hours on this 30-second video. I hired an animator for it. I composed my own music. I bought like a nice microphone for the voiceover. I mean, this was like a commercial. And I was looking at all of the other video submissions, and they were all, you know, just people talking on a webcam, very little effort. Some people were going like way over 30 seconds. And I'm like, I have to have a good chance of this. Like, my confidence was building. But they didn't announce a winner until like 4 or 5 days before the eclipse. And all my eggs are in this one basket. And I lost. Oh. So after a couple days of laying in bed completely depressed, because I live in New York, I'm nowhere near totality, and you know, it was all over the news how bad the traffic is and all this, and I was very excited it was all over the news though. And I just thought, well, it's over. What am I going to do now? So out of curiosity, I finally got out of bed and I started looking at all the commercial flight plans for the morning of August 21st. And I was just pulling my hair out thinking there's no way this is going to work out. And I was asking some of my pilot friends and other friends for their help. And right before giving up, I did find one flight on Southwest Airlines that was leaving from Portland, Oregon to St. Louis, Missouri. And my dad was born in St. Louis, and I've always wanted to go there. Especially since he passed away, I've always wanted to see where he was from. And my dad's grandson lived in Portland, and I was like, feels like meant to be. And there was literally one seat left on the flight. So I booked the flight. Now I have to book another flight to get to Oregon, and it was not a cheap ticket. So I book another flight, and I go to Oregon. But the biggest thing that I'm nervous about, it's Southwest Airlines, and they don't have any assigned seating. And I really, really need a window seat. Also, I need a window seat that's up front so that the wing's not in the way of the shot. You know, all odds are already against me, and it's just a normal commercial flight. So I brought $600 cash with me, ready to bribe somebody for a window seat. I mean, you come this far, right? There's a lot at stake. So I get to Oregon, and I try to check in online as early as I could the night before, and I got Group C, seat 18. I'm glad you appreciate how awful that is. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And I, you know, the business selector, it was sold out and everything. And so I was just hoping that for some miracle. And so I get to the gate, and I don't know what the odds of this are, but that Alaska Airlines flight that I wanted to win so badly happened to be leaving out of the gate right next to ours. And they were having this huge eclipse party. Like, I'm telling you, red carpet event, there were news cameras everywhere, everybody's celebrating, here's all these astrophysicists. There's the person that beat me right there in front of me. And I turn around and look at my gate, and it says it's 25 minutes delayed. I just felt like, this is terrible, it's all over, and I was thinking, should I leave the airport and catch an Uber and drive south to totality? And like, I don't know. And finally, somebody came onto the PA system, and she announced to our gate saying, thank you so much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. There's actually a reason why we've delayed your flight today. As most of you have heard of by now, there's a very historic moment happening in our country. For the first time in 99 years, a total solar eclipse is going from coast to coast. And these three gentlemen standing next to me here are three executives from Southwest Corporate that flew out here from our headquarters in Dallas to be on our flight today. And they brought Eclipse-themed glasses with them, or Eclipse glasses, and all the drinks were Eclipse-themed drinks, like a Bloody Mary was a solar flare, and all the drinks are free on the flight. And we deliberately delayed the flight just in time to be right inside totality. Oh my God, I know. I'm so glad you appreciate that, because it was like, oh my God, you guys are making me teary-eyed right now. I'm like, thank God. Now I just keep thinking, I really should introduce myself to these Southwest people. So I go over, I get all my camera gear out of my bags, and put them over my shoulder to show maybe I'm legit. I might know what I'm doing. And yes, I'm wearing a NASA t-shirt. Gotta represent. I love life, how this just manifested and came full circle. Now I'm here. It's so funny. I think a lot of the passengers thought I was actually a NASA photographer, and people are like going out of my way, So I introduced myself to the executives, and I share my story with them, and I showed them my Alaska video. And it shows some of my astronomy photos that you just saw and whatnot, and some of my story. And they said, "Those are your photographs?" "Yeah." "And you were supposed to be on that flight, but you're on ours instead, and you just flew across the country to be on this flight to take photos of this?" I said, "Yeah." "Okay, come with us." And I'm the first one on the plane. It's like, pick a seat, any seat. I'm like, holy cow. Okay, now my next goal is to find the cleanest window. For any of you trying to take photos out of an airplane window, it is very difficult to do. There's layers of plastic, that warp the images. It's really hard to get a sharp, focused shot. And sure enough, the outside of the plane was extremely dirty. I couldn't find a single clean window. And I run back to the front of the plane. I said, "You guys, I can't shoot out of any of these windows. They're too dirty." And the captain overhears me, and he said, "Hold on, why don't you sit in the front row on the left side of the plane? I think I can get your window cleaned." And the captain gets into the cockpit, gets cleaning supplies out, and I swear, the captain himself gets out of the plane, goes onto the moving jetway thing, and washes my window from the outside of the plane. Yeah, thank you, Captain Jackson. You changed my life. And if you look closely behind his hand, that is the Alaska flight. Here I was just 20 minutes ago, completely devastated, thinking this was all over, and now I'm getting treated like royalty by Southwest Corporate, and they're going above and beyond, and so now I'm like, I just can't believe what's happening, so I'm like, well, I might as well ask for more now. So now I start collaborating with the captain, and I said, okay, look, I have been envisioning this for a very, very long time. I really want to make it look like we're in space, but the only way to do that, shooting through this little 8-inch window, is I have to do what's called a photographic mosaic, and I'm trying to educate them on how this works. And I need to take tons and tons of photos and piece it all together later like a giant puzzle. So in order to get enough of the Earth and the moon's shadow, I need to get like at least 180-degree view. So is there any way you could kind of turn the plane around? He's just kind of rolling his eyes. This is obviously an extremely absurd request. And he's like, let me bring you down a level. I would have to get approval by the FAA to do that. Don't get your hopes up, but considering this is such a historic day and everybody's so excited and, I don't know. Don't get your hopes up, but you never know. And so we climb up, we go to 35,000 feet. And moments before totality, and it started getting dark like this. It did start feeling like I was in space. It was very cool. And I was looking back on the airplane wing, and the way the sunlight was shining on the wing, it was similar to how photos of the ISS are. When you see part of the solar panels or something on the ISS, it looked weird. It was kind of eerie, and it's like, wow, this is actually happening. And so he announces saying, we're going to do a practice turn called an S-turn maneuver here. And so he turns to the right and turns to the left, and I am sweating and shaking. I was just trying to get all these practice shots and mentally piece this all together, but it wasn't a wide enough turn. The eclipse is getting all warped in the airplane window, and I'm not getting enough of the Earth in, and I'm like, like, it's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do. All of a sudden, the flight attendant sitting in the jump seat right in front of me, facing me, gets a call from the captain. And she says, John, the captain wants to know, how was that turn? I'm like, are you kidding me? Well, since you're asking, it wasn't good enough? And he said it wasn't good enough. It's got to be a wider turn. So he ended up turning the plane around 5 times as the moon shadow. Yeah. And he sent me the flight plan later. Insane, right? I couldn't believe it. And that river, by the way, is the Snake River. That's the border of Oregon and Idaho. You can see it there. So you have the shape of 2 US states, which is so incredible. So during this moment, 3 minutes, we had 3 minute totality, which was pretty cool because we're flying with the moon shadow. And I am just utilizing everything I've ever learned with photography in these few minutes. I am bracketing 7 different exposures for each image. I have 3 cameras on me. For every image I'm taking, it's 50 megapixels each frame. And I'm just trying to get all the data in, trying to get all the focus in, all the detail in. I'm zooming in and out. I'm just getting all the puzzle pieces in. And I haven't even looked at totality yet. I haven't witnessed totality before. And so now we're on one of these turns, and I'm trying to get the eclipse, and I'm like, oh God, it's not working out. And all of a sudden, the flight attendants right in front of me, they're looking through their little door window. The cross-check window? It's that small circular window. That's angled up higher than the passenger windows, and I need a higher angle. And there's no layers of plastic in that window. And all of a sudden, they go, oh my God, it's right in our window. Oh wait, John, come here. Which is so amazing. Like, this is an amazing moment for them too, and they move out of the way to help me. And then I look over and I'm like, oh my, like, this is my first time seeing totality with my naked eye. I was excited about this, but I had no idea it would be that beautiful. And it's perfectly centered in this small little window. It didn't just take my breath away, it took all my thoughts away. And as soon as I took the shot, the plane levels off and totality was over. And everybody in the plane starts cheering and clapping, and I run to my seat, and I'm just, and I'm looking through all my shots, and I'm zooming in and out to make sure I have the exposures right and the focusing right and everything. And I piece it all together mentally in my head, and I was like, oh my God, I got it. And I said, I'll have a solar flare, please. And I finally drank and relaxed. Yeah. So I spent an entire year working on this image. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It was one of the most frustrating projects because I had to start over several times after working weeks on it. And it was very difficult because there was an issue called parallaxing because the plane was flying at 500 miles per hour and every which way. So, and I wanted it to be true. I wanted to be accurate. I wanted to really capture this in an evocative way. This was such a beautiful moment. And anyway, after months and months and months of working on this, I'm so excited. Are you ready to see it? I would love to show you. It's a long story why it's called this, but this is 108. Thank you. This is a huge display of it, so I'm going to walk around a little bit. This here, I think it's probably a little sharper on that monitor there, but so as I said, this is the Snake River. It's a huge file. It's almost, it's like 0.6 gigapixels wide. I think it's about 50,000 pixels wide. It's can be printed quite large. And what I didn't know at the time is I got the diamond ring moment, which is during that last turn. I mean, the timing of everything. I mean, it really is about being in the right place at the right time. And I'm a huge believer also in preparation meeting opportunity. I mean, this was just really amazing how it all came together. And of course, the moon shadow. moving across the Earth's surface. And I knew I had something unique here. I was pretty sure nothing like this has existed, and I was really excited to be able to share this with people, and especially to educate people on what totality is and what a total eclipse is. Because I've learned that most people don't know what totality is. My nephew, for example, lived at 98.8% totality, I think, and I said, what are you guys going to do for the eclipse the night before my flight? He said, well, we're at 99%. We'll just watch it from our backyard. And I go, no. You guys don't understand. If you just drive like 5 or 10 miles south, you will witness something that will change you, I'm telling you. And there were tens of millions of people that lived within a 30-minute drive from totality that didn't go see it. And that's so sad, you know? So I was mostly excited for that reason to share this with people. But I had no idea that people would be so moved by it. And the photo, I released it on the 1-year anniversary of the eclipse, and we unveiled it at Twitter. And they've been a client of mine for about 4 or 5 years. And Jack Dorsey, the CEO, was so kind. And he was just so moved by this. He invited me to exclusively unveil this in front of all of his employees, 3,500 people. It was really just it was the most beautiful moment of my life. And it hit the news, and the photo went viral. I've never experienced something like that before. I was not prepared for that. It was a little overwhelming. It was wonderful. People that didn't even go to the eclipse, people that didn't even know what totality was, were moved by this. And I kept wondering why. And I realized this was one of the most uniting moments in United States history. I mean, for one day, everybody came together and looked up and were just paused and was present for a day. Every news media outlet you can think of, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, they all covered a positive story for a day. Everything was just positive. When's the last time that happened? But it's very simple why that happened. For a brief moment in time, everyone in America became an astronomer. That's as simple as it is. Because that's what astronomy does. It's instilled in our DNA. It's literally who we are. Our ancestors for thousands of generations before us have looked up at the heavens and wondered, what is this? Who are we? What are we? Why are we here? But now in just the last 100 years or so, we have electricity now for the first time in human history, which is a blink of an eye, really. And so for the first time, we have too much light pollution. We don't get to see that every day anymore. And we've sort of lost, I mean, none of you have lost it, but we've lost that sense of wonder and curiosity. And I think it's this moment here, the director of astrovisualization at the American Museum in Natural History, his name is Carter Emmert. He has a beautiful TED Talk, by the way, you should check out. But he and I have become friends. He's a wonderful person. He called this image the ladder to space, which really meant the world to me. He said, in a lot of ways, this is better than images we take from space, which I know sounds ridiculous, I agree. And so sorry, Hubble, no, that's not what he's saying. He made a good point. He said, because this is at a familiar altitude. We've all flown at 39,000 feet, so you can appreciate the detail on the Earth's surface and relate to it and realize how close we actually are to space. We're already in space. We're on Spaceship Earth, right? But we need to take care of our planet because the only thing keeping us alive is that little thin blue line in our atmosphere. And just because of the moon's shadow covering it up, you can see the fragility of it and the vulnerability of it. And I just really appreciate NASA pushing education on climate change, and it's so important. And so there's a lot of elements around this that you can take from it. But so anyway, I want to make sure we leave time for any questions that you have. And before I do so, I have so much respect for all the work that you guys do. So if anybody needs to leave, no worries, I won't be offended. So I just wanted to thank you all so much again for being here. I love NASA, I always have, and I would like to give you all, you can do whatever you want with it, but this is the first print. So, yeah, so Anyway, so that'll be, I don't know where it'll be, but, oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, you could bring it outside. It'll be outside, so you can take a look at it. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.